Welcome to my project ideas. This is an ongoing series on SAP UI5 projects. And in this particular video, we'll learn how to integrate Microsoft Graph API with SAP UI5. So it will be more generic video. It will not be just SAP UI5 video. So the focus will be more upon Microsoft Graph API. And once we create the APIs and access them, so we can access them from SAP UI5, we can access from Node.js, we can even access from SAP app. So the calls to the API remain same from each of these platform, right? So there are a few prerequisites. So you need to have a knowledge of Graph API. You need to have IDE access. If you can use SAP Web IDE, SAP Business Application Studio, and in case you are just developing via Node.js, then you will need some other studio, right? And in case you want to develop this API in SAP app, then certainly SAP logon will be required here. And then you need to have basic knowledge of UI5 in case we plan to develop it using SAP UI5. The flow of Graph API is a bit typical. So you start with creating a Microsoft email ID, and then using that you create a Microsoft Azure AD application. And when we say AD, it is Active Directory, and via that only you can access your email ID. And then you provide all required access to your newly created application. And then you obtain client ID, client secret, user ID, and tenant ID via your application, right? And then based on those credentials, you generate a token. A token is created every time, generated every time you want to perform an operation. And then you test your APIs via Postman. And once you're done with the Postman testing, you use your tokens to perform all the operations you want in your desired IDE. So we will check all these tests all together. So this is a Swagger APIs where actually you can test all the APIs provided by Microsoft Graph API portal. And here you have to log in with your email ID, right? So once you are logged in, so everything is automatically authenticated. No token generation is required. Just to test how the APIs work, what are the output of the APIs. Like I'm testing right now here. So my profile is generating my name, my email ID, and other information related to my profile. So like this, you can even send a mail from here. So all the APIs for testing is available like this by Microsoft. So without generating tokens and all, you can perform operations and test. Okay, what will be the API link and what will be the header and whatever the code you will be sending to get the email or send an email, something like that. So those queries you can perform here. So we'll add this link in the description of the video. So we'll close this one. Also, this is a good platform to explore Graph API where you can read end to end regarding Graph API, why it is created, how it accesses your personal email IDs or your corporate email IDs to perform operations on behalf of you. So those things you can read here. Then for Postman testing, we have to have the Postman APIs, right? And so Microsoft already provides it. So these are the ones. So you create an application and perform all the events that you want. You can send email ID from here, but you need to have a log on. You need to have your keys so that can be used to log in here. So not all these operations are required in day-to-day life. So that's why we have created our own set of APIs here. So this is the one, my project ideas graph API. The very first one is to get access token based on the token ID and other few details. And then you get all the users, and then you get your own user using your own email ID. So for that particular user, you will also get user ID, right? So again, you can get your details using user ID, and then get a user messages. So you can get your own messages, whatever the messages were sent by my email ID, like this you can see here. So you can get those, and then you get the messages using user ID, and then you get individual message using user ID, right? This is already done. And then you get attachments. So all attachments are a single attachment using attachment ID. And the last one is to send email. So I believe once you have like access of these particular APIs. You have the command, you have the access of all the possible operations that you want to perform, using Graph API. So that's why we are focusing just upon these ones. And to perform these operations, what all you need is these. So you need a client ID, client secret, tenant ID, access token ID, username, user ID, message ID that will be generated by the Postman itself. When you fetch all the message, you will get message IDs. From there, you can fetch a single message ID. And the recipient ID is actually the email IDs where you'll be sending the emails. So yeah, these are the things that will be required and will generate it right now. So we have also written an article for you that is called Graph API Integration with SAP UI5. Here we have discussed all the theoretical part, and importantly, we have discussed steps to create authorization key of Graph API. So the very first thing is you go to this particular portal, portal.azure.com. So we are here, right? And then you create an Azure AD application. So here you go to Azure Active Directory. Let's go there, Azure Active Directory, and then select app registrations or app legacy, whatever is there. So we'll see, yeah, app registration is here. Let's call it my project ideas, and then create a new one. So what all is required is supported account types, redirect URI. Suppose every time someone comes and performs some operation, he can be redirected to my particular website. Via web, redirect UI. Accounts in the organization directory, accounts in multi-tenant, single tenant. So as of now, this is personal account only. For other, like in case you are doing in an organization, you have to select any of them. So multi-tenant, single tenant are different use cases where you just access particular email ID. One single email ID is for one particular purpose. Sometimes you have multi-tenant. So for same organization, you have multiple email IDs shared among multiple people. So multiple people are using as per their own requirement. So those are the use cases. So I just click on register. So now within the application settings, I need to navigate to the API permissions. This is the most important part. So if you will not grant permissions to yourself, then you will never be able to access the APIs. Although you might have generated the APIs, you might have generated the keys, credentials, but it will always fail. Fine. So we are here. So let's see what configure API permissions. So we'll see we API permissions. We have something called user read already there, but admin consent required is no. That's fine. So we'll try to click on add permission. Okay, the very first one was there. And I was searching for that only. So now you have entered Microsoft Graph. So what I need is I need to access my email ID, right? And then I want to see my own profile. Fine. And what else? So it's very confusing, right? So many things are there which to choose. So we'll choose the one that was given like this by default. We'll add the permissions. Fine. So you have the secret ID and client secret is this value. Perfect. So in overview, you can find the application or client ID. Then we'll find the object ID. Then the tenant ID is there. Fine. So I believe we have covered the most of the IDs. So if I go here and copy and paste the tenant ID like this, directly here, and go to authorization, check body, what all we have. So we need client ID and client secret, right? Okay, so I now have came back to this place called app registrations. So now you can see we have two applications, right? So the first one was my own Microsoft login, personal login. So personal login have some limitations. So you cannot use, I tried the same one and it said that please use slash consumers endpoint to serve this request. And it means when I click this, you see you have to do all your logins like this only, like directly with username and password, because this is personal. This cannot be used as a commercial one. So certainly we do not need that one. So what I will do, I will go back and I can create a new application where the application will be of type single tenant, multi-tenant, and not the personal type. So, but I have something already built with the same steps. So I will just copy these things now. So I will come back here to the notepad file, and what I've copied right now is client ID, application ID. So we'll just paste here. When we have tenant ID, we'll paste that one here. And then we'll need one thing called the tokens, right? Or the secrets. So we'll just delete the old one. Yeah. And we'll add a new client secret. For development, I'm using it. So I will just call it dev. And the value remains this one only, right? Client secret value. So we'll just copy here and paste like this. Also save this one in case it is required. So this is the secret ID. Now we are going to use these new client ID, client secrets. We'll just replace the value. So tenant ID is this one. And ID remains same for entire account. Then we have client ID here. And the client secret here. Click on send. And you see that we have successfully generated the access token. Fine. This access token is required now for all the other operations. I will just copy and paste it here. Access token. Great. So I will try to get all the users using this button, and for that I will go to authorization and it asks for token. That's it. App access token. Paste it here. Click on send. And now you see that all my details are fetched like this. Udharmani Pandey is there, and I even an ID assigned to me, right? This is my user ID. and the email ID you already know, or the username also you know, right? That's my name itself. And apart from that, I guess, so just copy this email ID. So this is not my direct Microsoft ID, but something else, something that is used for my application. So get user details using email ID, or get user details using user ID. I will use this one. My user ID is this one. So I will just copy this and replace the user ID here. Go to authorization, copy the access token, paste it here, click send. And you see my user details is fetched using that particular ID. So now we have successfully tested our API via Postman. So now we can easily integrate it in our UI5 application. So to do that, you need to go to this particular section in Postman, and when you click this code, you will see a lot of options. So what I need is JavaScript jQuery. Fine. So I'll just copy the code from here. And here in the application, I have created a simple view called Graph API Integration in SAP UI5, and added a button here called on fetch user. So inside it, I will just paste my details, my grant ID, client ID, secret, everything is already fetched, right? And if you see in the response, I get response dot access token, right? So I will just console the response dot access token. Just first run this part of application to see if this works. I will open up the console in parallel so that I can check if I'm able to get the access token or not. Fine, the application has loaded. I'll click on show user details, and I do see there is an error of cross origin. So to avoid this cross origin error, you can do a lot of things. First thing is that you maintain this particular location in the destination and call this URL from destination rather than the URL directly. Or for time being, we can open up something called Heroku, Heroku email, or what was CRS. That's it. And you will see, you'll find something called CORS URL. Yeah, it is called CORS anywhere. And this is just a way to override this CORS issue, not the right way, not a way to add in the production. And just copy this particular URL till here, copy it, and just paste it just before your URL. And it will not work like this, so you just copy the entire URL once again, paste in the browser. Remote access is required, so you can request for that. Now you can retry, just refresh your app. I believe you have saved, refresh it, and once we have the application once again, we'll click again, so user details, and you see the token is generated like this. That's awesome, right? Now within this return call, we'll open up one more call to fetch the user details. So Well, this one we can try, right? So we'll just copy this code once again, go back to my code, and just below the console, I will just write this, and I need to pass this authorization, right? So as of now, it is passed hard coded like this, but we don't want a hard coded one. So we'll replace it bearer plus our newly generated code, that is response.access token. And whatever response will be there, it will come in the console. So I will just refresh once again, another console, and clear the console. I will click on show you details, and you see firstly the token is generated, and then my entire details is added here. So like this, you can perform all the API calls from the web ID or from your UI5 application. So using simple AJAX calls. That's it. So I hope you have understood the entire flow of the Microsoft Graph API. The steps are very simple. You create your Microsoft account, you get required credentials, you create a secret ID, and then you generate a token. And using that token, you perform all the rest operations. So in case you have any issue, you can always drop a comment in the comment section. Thank you very much.